is how legends are made.
Okay, hey, everybody out there, thank you so much for joining me for this interview. And today I want to introduce somebody who is, again, no stranger to our Glover U fans out there. Today I'm here with real estate superstar Justin Ford. Justin, thank you so much for taking some time out to join me today.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you having me.
So, Justin, obviously, I want to get into a ton of stuff with you today. And I want to talk about some skills. I want to talk about, what makes people really excel within the business. But before we do that, because we do get a lot of newer people, and there are, believe it or not, there's 2 or 3 people out there that might not be familiar with you. So I want to talk a little bit about your start and how you got into the business. And I bring it up because I know you've just come out with a book that does start to tell your story and talks about kind of what brought you in here and got you into the business and really saw you excel. So tell us a little bit about how you started, and tell us a little bit too about the book.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. So I'm 39 today, not as in my birthday, but today I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year. And so for the last 17 years, I've been in the business of, mortgages and real estate. Mm-hmm. So basically my whole adult career since I was 22, I've been in this line of work. I was first introduced to this industry through mortgages. I was a telemarketer at a telemarketing firm. I've always been, since I really started working, I've always been good at sales. I, was a travel agent, seller when they used to have travel agencies. I worked in, like I said, a telemarketing firm where we raised money for the cancer fund. And then I had a buddy back in 2005 who had a mortgage company. And he says, man, you should come check us out. You can make calls in the evening. We're killing it. We're crushing it. I said, great. So I'd leave my 9 to 5 and I'd go from making calls to raising money for cancer to, dialing, smiling and dialing for mortgage refinances at night.
Sure.
And within 2 weeks, I quit my day job and I'm like, man, $8 an hour versus a couple grand. I'm like, see ya. So I left the regular job and just dove right in. And I was crushing it. I was, setting 7 to 10 refinance appointments within a few hours every day. Wow. And I saw the bigger picture, right? At before that, I was in sales, but it was hourly plus a little bonus. This was no hourly, all commission, but a lot of opportunity there. And so, did that for a few years, ended up, starting a mortgage company with a couple of guys, and then the market crashed. And so, went from 6 figures to no figures overnight, felt the effects of 2008. My wife and I, we lost our house to foreclosure, went through bankruptcy, lost our cars to repossession, had to get on food stamps, really ate some humble pie for a period of time, which was pretty tough. And then I got into doing short sales and loan modifications. We were helping people, that were going through the downturn, going through the struggle, and really helping people, save their homes or keep their homes. Yeah. And then from there, when the market kind of got better, which it did, that's back in 2013 when I joined Jeff's team. I got my license, joined Jeff's team back in 2013. Was with Jeff for 3 years, became one of his top agents while I was there, sold 100 homes my first year in the business, became his inside sales manager, and was on his agent leadership council. And then after 3 years, I decided to go start my own brokerage. And I did that for 4 years, and I thought that's what I wanted. I thought, I wanted to be my own guy, run my own thing. And I realized, not too long after that, that's not really what I wanted. I thought I wanted to build this big national brokerage, but, carrying the liability and the responsibility and all the stuff that comes along with that, I realized it's not really where my passion was. And so at the end of 2018, I decided to go back into full-time production. 2019 is when I went to my first Glover U conference, January of 2019, hired Kate. The rest is history. She helped me to get back into production, had my best year back in 2020 up until then, sold 125 homes, did 31 million, changed my life. And then just last year, I decided to close my brokerage and move over to EXP, and here I am today.
Absolutely. And unbelievable. So, Justin, there's one point I want to take you back to in that story, right? And there's a
Sure.
point that I want to focus on for a minute because
Okay.
I'll tell you why. And I think that out there in our audience, there's a lot of uncertainty about where things are going and how
Yep.
things are. And I think there's a lot of people who worry. And one of the points that you're talking about in there, and I'm going back because I've known you for a while and I remember this point specifically in your life, is where you were going from making it as a realtor to really stabilizing, right? And what were some of the things that switched? And I know it really took off even as you changed the model you were working under, how your
Yep.
brokerage worked and some of that
Yep.
stuff. But I know that was also a point where you went from maybe a little more unstable financially to really building that base.
Yep.
What were the differences for you, Justin, to make that switch? Was it
Yeah.
all schedule and habits? Was it, and obviously I know a lot of that too came into you really making those shifts to kick it into high gear with Kate. What were some of those first things that you tackled in that moment?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Honestly, for me, Nick, starting off with Jeff back, in 2013 through 2016, I learned how to follow a process, right? You
Yes.
show up, you do the work, you follow the process, the results end up showing up.
Yes.
And I was in an environment of accountability, right? When you're in, because you worked for Jeff as well, right? You're in there, you
Absolutely.
got other people, everybody's doing the same thing, everybody's prospecting, everybody's, there's a level of accountability that keeps people on track. And so, when I went out on my own, I didn't have that.
Mhm.
Right? I didn't have somebody holding me accountable. And I was just sharing this yesterday. I was in Philly speaking at one of the half day events for Deliver You, and I was sharing with the agents that were there. I said, being an independent contractor is like a blessing and a curse at the same time, because we kind of can make our own schedule and do what we want. And it's like, that's great when you got a great thing going. You can take a day off if you need to. You could go out and take a vacation. You don't have to worry about requesting time off from the boss. But it's also a curse in a sense if you don't have that level of accountability and discipline,
Mhm.
to really manage your time. And so when I hired Kate, that accountability piece to, not only hold me accountable to my time management, right, but to my goals. And I think to me, having a coach is so important, not just in real estate, but in any area of life that someone wants to improve or go to the next level. It's not even an expense; it's an investment into your life. And so
Sure.
when I hired Kate and really got laser beam focused on what it is that I wanted, and had Kate in my corner to help me stay on track, is when my things really took off and changed.
That makes perfect sense. Justin, where was the first place that you applied that accountability within your business? Because obviously there's so many places, from our health into
Yep.
our lead generation, into sometimes our follow-up or even our internal systems. Where did you say, hey, and I wouldn't even say, I want to ask you this actually as a
Yep.
two-part question.
Sure.
Because you coach so many agents, and for
Yep.
those of you watching out there that might not know, Justin teaches our group program, Prospecting Boot Camp. And this is an unbelievable overview of so many of the basic components of lead generation and systems and building an unbelievable business. And so there's so many things in there that you could look at. Where was the first place for you? And then, of all the agents you deal with, what do you think most people lack, or where most people should be focusing for themselves specifically in that same question?
Yep. No, that's also a great question. And so, Kate came to me, and I remember it. It was our first coaching call. I think it was back in January, February. I think it was maybe February of 2019.
Okay.
Kate asked me what my goals are, right? Like, what are your goals? Which is what I ask on day one of the prospecting boot camp, or when I'm training one of my agents here at the office. I'll say, what is your goal? Like, what is your goal? And then they'll tell me their goal. And then I'll say, what is it going to take for you to accomplish this goal? Like, what do you need to do on a daily basis in order to hit this goal? And so when Kate asked me that, I said, I need to be on the phones prospecting every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. She says, okay. And she said, well, what's the penalty if you don't do that? And so what had happened is I told her what I know I need to do on a daily basis. She says, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable to that. But if you don't do it, what's the penalty? And I also share this in Prospecting Bootcamp, or whenever I'm speaking, and I brought it up yesterday, is if you're an agent right now and you're watching this, and let's say you're struggling, right? You're not making the amount of money that you want to make, and you're not selling the amount of homes that you want to sell? The answer is real simple. You're just not talking to enough people. And so for me, Nick, it was the consistency of talking to 20 to 30 people every single day, building that strong foundation again of lead generation and prospecting and constantly having conversations. The reality is the majority of people that you talk to are going to tell you no, and that's okay. You're only looking for 1 to 2 people per day to say yes. And I want you to think about this, right? If you're listening, what if you had to call 50 people per day and you got 49 no's, but one person out of those 50 would say yes, and you did that every single day, 5 days a week? That's 5 appointments.
Sure.
And if you did that 4 weeks a month, that's 20 appointments. Let's say you were on 20 listing appointments a month and you only got half, that's 10. And let's say out of those 10, you only sold 70% of them, that's 7. Is it worth talking to 50 people and getting 49 no's per day to get 1 yes in order to take 7 listings? And so I always knew, because when I started with Jeff, Nick, that was the process, right? He said, if you do this and you talk to this amount of people, you'll set appointments, right? Because it's a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more appointments you're going to set. The more appointments you set, the more appointments you go on. The more appointments you go on, the more listings you're going to take. And the more listings you take, the more homes you're going to sell. And so for me, it was getting back to the basics. And if anybody's watching right now, and I can encourage anybody, that's it. We need to have more conversations.
So it's really, it's upping that amount of people we're talking to. So we're upping the amount of opportunities we run into. Yep. And that makes absolute sense. And I'll even say one more thing that I would even add to that for a lot of people out there watching. It's upping our skill level so we can capitalize on those opportunities, which of course, that's one of the things you do so well, Justin, is
yep.
smoothly take it right into the benefit for them of working with you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, all right, Justin, I can sit down and I can make calls. But what I find is a lot of agents, there's several things that hold agents back, Nick, from picking up the phone and prospecting. Number one is fear of rejection, right? I think most people struggle with this. Most people don't like the word no. Most people don't want to be rejected. So we naturally, as agents and even as people, shy away from anything that's going to be hard like that. We naturally want to look for the path of least resistance to get a deal. And that's fine. But the reality is there's not going to be a lot of those out there, right? If we're only relying on what's comfortable and what's easy, we're not going to be in the business very long. Yes. But if we're willing to put ourselves in some uncomfortable positions, we're willing to take some no's, and what we need to do is just get really good at the skill work. Jim Rohn, calls it the law of averages, right? He says when you do something long enough, a ratio appears. So let's say you talk to 10 people and one person says yes. And if you track that over a period of time, you know that over time, this ratio is going to show up. Well, how do you improve the ratio? You can do it one of 2 ways. You can either A, talk to more people, or B, you can work on your skills. And so that's one of the things that we teach at Prospecting Bootcamp is how to build the skill of prospecting, how to build the skill of overcoming objections, how to build the skill of asking the right questions. And so, Nick, what it comes down to when people are having call reluctance and they're afraid to get on the phone, and for those that are watching, it really comes down to mindset. And when you have the mindset and you're afraid of rejection or you don't know what to say, how do we build the confidence? It's by getting confident with what to say and how to say it. And that's really the purpose of role playing and writing out the scripts. And it's like anything that, day one of anything, think about it like somebody sending their kid to kindergarten for the first time. That kindergartner is nervous to go to school. But by day 15, 20, 30, month 3, they love it, right? It's no longer a fear. No different than, when you're prospecting, right? When you prospect, day 1 is going to be the toughest. I always say the first call is the hardest one to make. But if you'll commit to go through it, right? We hear the term no pain, no gain.
Sure.
Right? When you go to work out and you're really trying to build muscle, it's going to hurt for a while. But once you start building that momentum, it gets easier. And it really is the same thing with calling. And so I think that, it's not and I always like to say it like this, it's never the lack of how do I pick up a phone or even being willing to commit to the time to do it. It's all mindset. And if we can get the mindset right and we can really have goals that we're focusing on and really understand that the more people I talk to, the more opportunities are going to appear. and that rejection is just a part of it. Like we have a Gloverism, right? The more rejection I get, the more money I make. And if we understand that it's going to take some no's to get to some yeses, if you're okay and you can learn how to get comfortable with the no's, then the yeses will show up.
That makes perfect sense. I can totally understand that. Justin, another question I had for you, and this is for you specifically, because when we start to get to team leaders and agents that are at that high level, one of the things that happens is there gets to be a real compression on their time. And I think a lot of agents start focusing on the things that you just talked about. And then all of a sudden it's working. And now we're selling homes. And now there's all these other things that are pulling on people. And I bring you up in this because, of course, you're coaching, you're running your operation as it is, you're going ahead, you're speaking, and you're doing all these other things. So how do you maintain the focus and the management on the time? And how do you keep the business running when it seems like there's 100 hands pulling at you at once?
Yep. It all comes back to having a schedule, right? We talk about own the morning, win the day. And without having really good time management, it's going to be tough. And as an expressive, a high I, it's very hard for me. Time management doesn't come naturally. And so I have to build things into my schedule, but also you really can't perform at a high level once you get there unless you have leverage. Like I don't show homes. I use a showing agent to show all my homes. She's absolutely incredible. I meet with the buyer, do the buyer consultation, get them set up, and then hand it off to my showing assistant. And then once she, gets them to the point where they're ready to move forward, then my assistant takes over and does the paperwork. So really what I'm doing is I'm communicating with the seller, the buyer. I'm working with the client. I'm doing the high dollar producing opportunities, and I'm outsourcing the rest of it. So there's no way, as you grow your business and you really want to keep going, that you can do it alone. You got to have the right team around you.
That makes perfect sense. And so I guess that probably ties into the answer to the next question, because one of the things I know about you is how important your family is to you. And so one of the things you've done is you've built an amazing business, yet you have been able to maintain a balance between family time and even at some points integrating your family into the business to spend more time. How do you keep and maintain that balance? And how do you protect yourself from really going beyond it?
Yep. And so for me, it's really, I teach this when I'm teaching in the prospecting boot camp where I'm teaching on time management, is when you sit down to create your schedule. So let's say it's, Sundays or whatever, when you're building out your calendar, you have to start with your non-negotiables. Like, what are the non-negotiables that you're going to put on your calendar first? And then all of your other stuff gets scheduled around that. For instance, like I don't work on Sundays. I go to church in the morning. It's our family day. That's a non-negotiable. I do not work on Sundays. Okay. Friday mornings, I spend time with my wife. We focus on, our business. We talk about our finances. We go out to breakfast. We go for a run together. Non-negotiable, right? When I'm prospecting in the morning, non-negotiable. And so, when you put these non-negotiables on your calendar, you're making time for what's important, right? You're making time for your family. Like my kids' games, like when their season starts, all of their games go on my calendar and I don't miss their games. I just made a pretty strong commitment this past week. My youngest son, Judah, he's 9. And on August 1st, he starts tackle football. He's been doing flag for the last 4 years. And that's been easy because I coach his team. It's on Sundays. I don't work on Sundays. Well, I was approached by the head coach and he's like, man, we'd love to have you as one of our 5 coaches. I said, okay, what's the time commitment? He says, 3 to 5 days a week, 2 hours in the evening. And I'm like, shoot, right? Now here's, and I kind of wrestled with this for a couple of weeks and here's what I came up with. Coach said, as long as I'm there minimum 3 days a week, I can coach. And then I had to ask myself, and I love what Kate Simon, who's one of our coaches at Glover, our head coach, said, Justin, what does success look like to you in this season of your life? What does success look like to you? You know what? My son's never going to be 9 again, right? I can, when he goes off to high school and college, I can sell as many homes as I want, but to be able to be on this journey with him and invest this time to help him pursue something like football that he loves, I'm gonna commit to 3 days a week. So guess what? If I'm coaching on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm only going on appointments on Tuesday and Thursday. And so when someone wants to set a listing appointment with me, It's only going to be able to happen on Tuesday and Thursday. And if not, I'm not going to be able to go, because to me, those are non-negotiables, and that's what's important. So we have to build those into our calendar.
So it sounds like setting boundaries is really the thing that's leading to your on real life.
Have to. Without boundaries, as real estate agents, we will run 24/7. If we don't set boundaries, our clients will expect us to show homes to them on the holidays. They'll call us at 10:30 at night. You got to set the boundaries. Even my phone, Nick, when someone calls my phone, hi, this is Justin. If you're calling me between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m., I'm unavailable and on full floor time. And if you're calling me on Sunday, today's my day off. I'll call you tomorrow. Absolutely. And so those boundaries are set.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And speaking of boundaries, Justin, I want to thank you because you've been so generous with your time with us today and being able to go through some of these questions. Before I let you go, one last question that I want to ask you. Yep. What would you say, and I ask this pretty much with everybody as we wrap these up, what would you say is your biggest advice to an agent just getting started out in the business? If you could tell them one thing, what is that one piece of advice that a new agent could take forward in this or any market?
Yep. And I'll say this not just to a brand new agent, but any agent in the business right now, is last month an article came out, and that article said that 40% of agents haven't even sold a home yet this year, and 25 to 35% of agents will be out of the business in the next 12 months. Yes. So if you're a brand new agent or you're newer in the business and you're struggling, the number one piece of advice I could give you is make contacts. You have to throw yourself in. Yes, we all want our phones to ring. Yes, we want everybody to find us and call us, come list my home, help me buy a home. We all want that. But the reality is 90% of agents are out of the business in their first 2 years. And the reason why is because I think a lot of agents come into the business with an unrealistic expectation that business is just going to happen. And I'm so grateful, Nick, and I'm sure you are too, that we both really got our start working with Jeff, right? Learning how to pick up the phone, learning how to make the contacts, learning how to get in front of people, and learning how to close deals. And so you're watching this right now and you want to be in this business next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, the number one way that can ensure that you will be around for a long time is to learn how to get in front of people and have 20 to 30 conversations a day.
He's absolutely right. No question about it. When you do that, you control where your business goes, no matter what the market is. You control your income, you control your time, you control everything. Justin, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today. If people want to get a hold of you, if they have a referral in the Metro Detroit area, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yep, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm the official Justin Ford. And the reason why I went with that is because my Justin Ford name wasn't available. Apparently there's hundreds of us. So I had to make it unique. The official Justin Ford. You can email me at justin@justinfordteam.com. You can also find me with my podcast, the Justin Ford Unleashed podcast. And like Nick said at the beginning of this, I've got a book coming up. You can find it on Amazon right now and pre-order it. It's just called Unleashed. And I'd love to be able to serve you and your clients.
All right, Justin, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Are you ready for this? It's time for a twist.